for now, Rin is the villain. She is. I love her, but she's the villain. In most fantasy stories, we have evil fighting good, good prevailing, and that's the end of the story. But in the Poppy Wars, these lines are very blurred. We have characters we're rooting for, committing atrocities, and villains revealing motives that give us pause. In today's video, we're going to explore the moral gray zone of R. F. Kuang's world and dive into the question, what is a true hero? What is a true villain? And are we just reading about a lot of anti-heroes shaped by war? But first, welcome to my reading corner, where everyone's welcome. Now, for context, this is my second time reading The Poppy War. I've read the first one and the second one like 2 years ago, and now I'm rereading it because it's now my husband's favorite series, and he wanted somebody to talk to about it, and I'm happy to oblige. He bought this copy for himself, not for me, and it is beautiful and has some beautiful visuals throughout that I'm going to share as I describe some of these characters. Let's start this conversation by defining what is a hero, a villain, and an anti-hero, because it's probably not exactly what you expected. By definition, a hero is a mythological or legendary figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability. B, an illustrious warrior. C, a person admired for achievements and notable qualities. Or D, one who shows great courage. So what does it mean to be an anti-hero? I'll be honest, this definition surprised me because it's not exactly what I thought. By definition, an anti-hero is a protagonist or notable figure who is conspicuously lacking in heroic traits. And lastly, what is the definition of a villain? A villain is a character in a story or play who opposes the hero. B, a deliberate scoundrel or criminal. C, one blamed for a particular evil or difficulty. D, villain. And E, an uncouth person. Now, I'm gonna make this fun and do character assignments for some of my favorite characters, but keep in mind, I am doing this after reading the first book only. I think after I read each book, I might reassess where I feel like these characters fit on the spectrum of hero and villain. But remember, we are just talking about book one. Now, there's a few points I want to make before I dive into this. The first being that war is going to twist most people's morals. I think we see so many atrocities and very violent atrocities committed on all sides, so it makes sense that our characters change so dramatically throughout the book. And that's one thing I kind of liked. I feel like R.F. Kuang did an amazing job writing Rin. She is such a realistic character going through this scenario. Her fear is very real. I'm a frequent watcher of anime, so maybe I will consume a lot of media where you have an overly optimistic protagonist. You don't get this in Rin. Rin fears that she's going to die, that she's going to fail throughout the book, and that was realistic. I swear, half the time she was in battle, she mentioned wanting to curl up and cry or run away, which is just realistic. I also think it's realistic that Rin is very motivated by saving herself. 8 times out of 10, if she has to choose between saving herself and saving others or a nation, she's going to save herself. And I think that was a very consistent trait of her throughout the story. But once Rin is face to face with how terrifying and violent this war is, she's like, yeah, I don't care about always being the good guy. And she had sprinkles of that prior, back when she was at Singard talking about strategy. If you remember the time she came up with the strategy to flood the river that they ended up using at the end, the river delta. Like, she's always been willing to do what's morally gray for her own safety and for what she seems to be as good. Now, opposed to Rin, we have Altan. I think the biggest difference with Altan is that we kind of don't really see him in the beginning of the book or understand what his motives are until much later. And once you realize that the atrocities and trauma that he witnessed was in his childhood, it makes sense that, like, he has kind of been an anti-hero the majority of the book, in my opinion. Now, I did want to bring up one small plot hole that maybe when I read the second and third book, it'll make a little bit more sense to me, but it bothered me and I wanted to bring it up. It does not make sense to me why Altan is so fiercely loyal to the Empress, especially considering how the Empress betrayed Spearly. Rin clocked that the first day of school. She said they must have given them up on purpose. So I find it really hard to believe that Altan, in his years in Singard and his years festering while being tortured, never came to that conclusion as well and was always fiercely loyal to the Empress. I think at one point he even like says, well, no, the Empress is a shaman. So even though like maybe this nation isn't the best to Spearly, the Empress is just like us. I would understand more if this is just the extent of the Empress's power. It definitely seems like whoever is in communication or in the presence of the Empress has some lust to save her and fight for her, which I'm assuming is just part of her power. But overall, that plot hole just like bothered me. It doesn't make sense that Rin was able to understand that, but Altan never came to that conclusion. Regardless, we keep moving on. The second point I want us to remember is that your perspective in this story is obviously going to shape how you feel about each character. Yes, Rin is our protagonist, and she is a hero to her nation, but to the innocent people of Mungen, like, she is a villain. And I really like towards the end of the story where she has that like sobering moment with Cora where she's like, we just killed millions of innocent people. Like, we're terrible people. We're terrible people. And Cora is just kind of like, we did what we did, and we're going to lie to ourselves about why we did it and if it was right or wrong. And that's just how we're going to live with it. And even though that was really like kind of cold, it was like the truth. Like, what are you to do now? You did it already. You can live with the guilt or you can move on. And in the face of war where they're probably going to get killed the next day or the next month, like, tell yourself what you need to tell yourself. But I think I did appreciate that Arf Kuang added that sobering moment for Rin, because at first she was like trying to justify to Kitay how she felt. Like, I did this and I did it for us. And he was like, no, babe, genocide is never okay. So I liked that. I think it reminded me that Rin she has morals, because I was feeling like she didn't for a second, but for her to have that sobering moment and really be like, I did this and this is wrong, made me like her a little more, because she was kind of getting on my hit list, I'm not gonna lie. So let's dive into these character assignments, and of course let's start with Rin. So Rin starts as our underdog and becomes a war criminal. What a trajectory. I think ultimately to me, Rin is a villain. Genocide. You just can't justify genocide, specifically of the like innocent people. You're never gonna talk me out of that. I believe Rin is the villain by the end of the story, regardless of her motivations, regardless of what she experienced throughout the book. She's a villain. Genocide villain. I'm a firm believer. I also thought it would be fun to assign each character to an alignment chart. And for that reason, I'm going to place Rin at chaotic good to neutral chaotic evil. I think in the beginning of the book, she's definitely chaotic good. She'll bend the law to do what she wants and get to where she needs. And in that time, I definitely think it was justified. But at the end of the book, like, her motivations are strictly about getting what she wants, and she will step on anyone to do that. Now, let's talk about Nezha, Rin's rival that somehow turns into her ally. He is Rin's villain, but his nation's hero. Like, he definitely likes to follow the law, especially because it benefits him in his position of privilege as, like, basically a prince. But to Rin, he was bullying her like none other for the majority of the story. The only time he changed his opinion was when she saved his life. And they do have that conversation later where she's like, I'm so happy to see you, but like, you were like terrible to me. You basically almost tried to kill me. Now, where does he fall on our alignment chart? I'm gonna put him at lawful evil. Argue in the comments with me about it. I'm going to read this. A lawful evil villain methodically takes what they want within the limits at their code of contact without regard for whom it hurts. They care about tradition, loyalty, and order, but not about freedom, dignity, or life. They play by the rules, but without mercy or compassion. They are comfortable in a hierarchy and would like to rule, but are willing to serve. I feel like he fits in this. Like, honestly, if his dad told him, hey, go like massacre these innocent people, I honestly think he would go and do it. He's a rule follower, and I mean, it makes sense given that the rules have benefited him his whole life. We'll put him under lawful evil. Okay, let's talk about Jiang. I honestly don't know where to put him on the scale of hero, anti-hero, and villain. I feel like he doesn't do anyone unnecessary harm, but he has such power and kind of refuses to use it. So, kind of with like the saying, with great power comes great responsibility. He has great power and like kind of just doesn't want to get involved. I understand that he's like, if I release this, like it's a bust for everyone, but he disappears. Like, he's not even there to help talk about strategy. He's just like, it's out of my hands. I refuse to contribute to this in any way. Now, where is he on the alignment chart? I'm gonna put him as a true neutral. As I said, I feel like he doesn't do anybody harm, but he also doesn't help anybody. And like, his motivations are kind of to the wind. Now, our boy Altan. I'll be honest, I'm an Altan hater. I just felt like he was ridiculous the entire time. Yes, he was being heavily drugged. I had a very traumatic upbringing, but like, sometimes his logic was just out the window, and the way that he was treating other people, I think, was just disrespectful. I really appreciated that the little romance between Rin and Altan was like so small because it was realistic. You think Rin, of all people, would be the type to like have waste a minute of time to kiss each other or embrace each other goodbye? No, this girl was dreaming, if I need to kill this man, I'm going to kill this man. If I have to, I'm gonna probably struggle with living with that for the rest of my life. But I am a realistic girl, and like I said, I appreciate a consistent character throughout a story. Altan, in my opinion, is an anti-hero because although he's a little crazy for a bit, he's very clear on who his enemy is and what he's willing to do and what morals he's willing to bend to destroy that enemy. I think even considering him going to the mountain to try to release all the shaman, he had that plan and it was a terrible plan. And I feel like once he got there and realized that there was no way he was going to be able to control the shaman, he was like, you know what? We're not gonna do that, actually. So for that reason, I think too, on the alignment chart, I put him under chaotic good, maybe lawful evil, just because he's so willing to do what needs to be done for his country. Which, like I said, it doesn't make sense why he's so loyal to this country, but we're gonna consider it brainwashing. And lastly, my favorite guy, Kitay. Kitay is, in my opinion, probably the only true hero in the story. Like I said, he tried to hold Rin accountable when she was trying to justify her genocide. He was not willing to take unjust extremes, and for that reason, I would put him under lawfully good. So at the end of the day, the Poppy War, leaves us with a very uncomfortable truth that we have no clear heroes, no clear villains, and honestly, no clear anti-heroes. Everyone's morals are up in the air, and that just makes sense for the situation that they're in. War is going to change your perspective. It just is. But with that, I thank you for joining me for this video. Thank you for joining me in my small corner of the world, and until next time, I promise you as I read these books, I will come back and readjust my rankings. But for now, Rin is the villain. She is. I love her, but she's the villain.